Mira stood motionless in the narrow kitchen, staring at the kettle even though it had long gone cold. The call from the hospital had come just after noon, a doctor's voice, brisk and detached, reciting medical details she couldn't absorb. Only one word had carved itself into her mind: expired. Her mother, Lorna, was simply gone. Something in Mira cracked. She sank onto a stool and stared at the faded wall for hours, trapped in a daze so deep she couldn't even cry. If this story touched your heart, friends, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more touching stories. Thank you for being here. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames. Dalton was home. He swept into the kitchen, still wearing his work badge, irritation etched deep in the sharp angles of his face. "What is this?" he barked. "Where's the roast? Where are the canapés? Everett Hale is coming tonight. Everett Hale, my new division chair." Mira lifted her gaze. Her eyes were red, swollen. She tried to speak steadily, but the words collapsed into a whisper. "Dalton, my mother died today." He froze, not with grief, but annoyance. "Died?" he said, as though she'd told him the grocery store had run out of eggs. "Lorna was old, Mira. She had heart issues. This wasn't unexpected." "Yes, it was," Mira breathed. "I can't host a dinner tonight. I need time to—" Dalton stepped closer, towering over her, gripping her shoulders just a bit too tight. "Listen," he hissed. "Hale is driving across the city to see how I live. Whether I get promoted or stuck at my desk depends on tonight. You will pull yourself together, you will put on something presentable, and you will not ruin this for me." Mira swallowed hard. Her mother's apartment key was still at the reception desk. She had no money, no safe place to escape to, and Dalton knew that, knew it well. "You wouldn't throw me out," she whispered, even though dread curled in her belly. "Try me." His smile was small and cold. "You have 2 hours. Cook, clean up, change your face. Guests don't want a grieving hostess." He left her in the kitchen, the air feeling thicker by the second. Through sheer numb autopilot she cooked, her hands trembling so violently the knife nearly slipped. When it came time to dress, she ignored the pastel dress Dalton preferred and reached instead for a modest black one, her last quiet rebellion for her mother. At 7 sharp, the doorbell rang. Dalton pasted on a grin wide enough to split his face. "Professor Hale, welcome, sir." Everett Hale stepped inside, tall and silver-haired, leaning on a heavy cane with a carved ivory handle. His gaze swept the small apartment with unflinching scrutiny, not cruel but observant. "This better be worth the drive," he muttered. Dalton pushed Mira forward. "This is my wife, Mira." She bowed her head slightly, voice stuck in her throat. Everett nodded but watched her a moment longer than necessary, something unreadable behind his eyes. Dinner was excruciating. Dalton bragged endlessly, laughed too loudly, lied shamelessly. Mira served silently, tears slipping down her cheeks despite her efforts to hide them. Dalton noticed and kicked her hard under the table. Everett noticed too. His gaze sharpened, but when Mira leaned close to pour him wine, her sleeve slipped, revealing the antique silver pendant she never removed, an antique family heirloom with a crest etched on its face. Everett's cane thudded against the floor. His eyes widened with shock, and then he grabbed her wrist. "Where did you get this?" Everett demanded. "This crest belongs to my bloodline. Now tell me, who was your mother?" Mira froze as Everett Hale's fingers wrapped tightly around her wrist. Not painful, but firm with urgency. The pendant trembled between them, catching the dining room light. "Where did you get this?" he asked again, voice lower, rougher. Dalton's smile evaporated.
"It was my mother's," Mira stammered. "She told me never to take it off." Everett's jaw locked. "Your mother's name?" "Lorna," Mira whispered. "Lorna Karis, before she changed her name." Dalton jerked his head toward her. "She's confused. Grief makes her dramatic." But Everett wasn't listening to him. The room felt suspended, the air dense, as he pieced something together behind his stormy eyes. "Lorna Karis," he repeated softly, as if tasting a memory. His breath hitched. "That was my sister's name, the sister who vanished 31 years ago." Dalton's fork clattered onto his plate. "Sir, she's lying. Her mother was a seamstress, a nobody." Everett rose abruptly, leaning hard on his cane. "A nobody? Lorna walked away from an inheritance that could have bought half this city because she feared our father would force her into a life she didn't choose." He turned his eyes to Mira, no longer stern, but devastated. "And now you stand before me," he said, voice cracking, "in a mourning dress with her locket around your neck." Mira felt the entire floor tilt beneath her. You're my uncle?" Everett didn't answer. His attention shifted to her tears, the black dress, and the limpness in her posture. "Why are you crying, child?" he asked gently, as if afraid of the answer. Mira swallowed. "My mother died today. I found out only hours ago." Everett closed his eyes. A single tear slid down his cheek, disappearing into his beard. Dalton saw the shift in power and lunged to reclaim it. "Professor Hale, please, she's unstable. This little display is just grief and nerves. The dinner." "Dinner?" Everett's voice boomed like thunder. He swung toward Dalton, the cane slamming against the floor. "Your wife's mother died today, and you made her host your performance?" Dalton blanched. I didn't know." "You knew," growled Everett, "and instead of comforting her, you forced her to entertain, to serve, to hide fresh grief under moke-up?" He took a step closer, eyes gleaming with a dangerous clarity. "Dalton, how long have you treated her like this?" Dalton sputtered, reaching for charm that no longer worked. "Sir, please, you're misunderstanding." Everett raised one hand, silencing him instantly. "No, I see everything clearly." His voice dropped into a controlled, lethal calm. "As of tonight, you are dismissed from the promotion track, and by morning I will make sure you are dismissed from the company entirely." Mira's breath caught. Dalton staggered backward as if struck. You can't do that," Dalton stammered. "This is my apartment, ours, company housing for employees. She can't stay here. You can't throw me out." Everett's laugh was chilling. "Oh, I can. And more than that, this apartment isn't owned by the company anymore." Dalton blinked, confused. Everett tapped his cane on the floor. 5 years ago, I moved this entire building into the Hale Family Trust, awaiting the day I might find my sister or her child. And the sole surviving heir of that trust is standing right here." Dalton's skin drained of color. "Wait, what does that mean?" "It means," Everett said, "this home belongs to Mira, not you." Dalton stumbled backward in panic. Mira, trembling but resolute, finally spoke. "Dalton, get out." His face contorted from shock to pure animal fear, then twisted into something darker. He lunged toward the table, grabbed a crystal vase, and hurled it at the wall inches from Everett's head. It shattered, spraying shards. "You think this is over?" Dalton screamed. "I'll destroy everything before I lose." And in the doorway, with madness in his eyes, Dalton made the first move that would turn this family revelation into a war. Dalton slammed the metal apartment door shut before Everett could reach him. Locks clicked. 1, then 2, then the chain. Mira stumbled back as his shadow moved on the other side of the peephole. Then came his voice, high, frantic, almost gleeful. "Perfect timing! I'm calling the police." Mira's stomach dropped. Dalton's tone sharpened, becoming theatrical, the way he sounded when he rehearsed lies in the mirror. Yes, hello, 911? I need help. My wife brought a strange man here. They're threatening me, destroying my belongings. She's unstable. I'm terrified. Please hurry. Mira pressed a hand to her mouth. She knew that voice, that rehearsed panic, the one he used at office parties to spin stories that weren't his to tell. She wasn't surprised, just sickened. Everett's expression hardened. He's trapping you. If the police arrive now, they'll see you outside your own home with me, and they'll believe him. The humiliation hit all over again, Dalton twisting reality so convincingly she could already picture the officer's skeptical stares. I don't want to be taken to a station tonight. Not today. Not after everything. Everett inhaled sharply, recognizing the plea beneath the words. He draped his heavy coat around her shoulders. Come, you're not staying here. They descended the dim stairwell. Mira didn't look back at the apartment door, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she already knew what waited behind it, a man who would burn the world to keep control. Outside, snow blew sideways, the wind slicing through her dress. Everett opened the door of a sleek black sedan and guided her inside. The car's warmth wrapped around her, but it couldn't untangle the knots in her chest. They drove in silence for a long stretch, the city lights blurring past in streaks. Mira pressed her forehead to the glass, thinking about her mother lying in a hospital cold room, about Dalton locking her out of her own grief, about the certainty that nothing would ever return to the way it was. Everett finally spoke. I should have found Lorna sooner. Mira glanced at him. For all his power, he looked suddenly old, like a man carrying 3 decades of regret. My father was a tyrant. He wanted to use her life as leverage for business alliances. She begged him for freedom, and when he refused, she vanished, changed her name, cut every tie. I spent years tracking dead ends. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. She must have been still afraid I'd be like him. Mira swallowed. Are you? Everett's eyes softened. I tried not to be, though business forces its own calluses. But Mira, now that I've found you, everything I own, resources, lawyers, security, will be used to protect you, starting tonight. The heater hummed softly as they took the highway out toward the suburbs. When they arrived at Everett's home, an estate tucked behind tall pines, the front porch lights clicked on automatically. Inside, the quiet felt foreign, almost too calm. Everett settled her on a leather sofa near the fire and brought her hot tea. What do you want now? He asked gently. Mira stared into the flames, her voice raw. I want to bury my mother, properly. That's all I can think about. And after? He asked gently. I don't know. Maybe rebuild. Everett nodded as if sealing a silent pact. Then we start with the funeral, leave the rest to time. The next 2 days blurred into motion, documents, arrangements, calls, and condolences. Everett haggled everything, insisting she conserve her strength. Mira floated through it in a quiet haze. Dalton never appeared, not at the wake, not at the cemetery, not in any of the places where a husband should. But on the day of the funeral, cold, gray, the air heavy with loss, Mira learned why. Because he chose that moment, that sacred silence, to make his move. A car screeched to a stop at the cemetery gates. Dalton stepped out with a smug smile and a lawyer carrying a thick folder. Stop the burial. By law, I speak for Lorna now. And Mira felt the ground shift beneath her all over again.
Dalton strode toward the open grave like a man arriving at a business luncheon, not his mother-in-law's funeral. His suit was too crisp, his smile too self-assured, and beside him walked a frail attorney clutching a folder swollen with documents. Everett stepped forward instinctively, shielding Mira. You have no right to be here, he growled. Dalton held up a hand, all smug civility.
You don't get to decide that. I'm Lorna's legal representative. He nodded to the lawyer. Show them. The attorney cleared his throat and produced a notarized document. Ms. Lorna Karras granted Mr. Dalton Red a full power of attorney 3 years ago. This includes medical decisions, financial decisions, and burial arrangements. A murmur rippled among the mourners. Mira felt her stomach twist. 3 years ago. A notary. A pile of papers. Dalton nudging her mother to sign where the tabs are, claiming it was for a car loan. Lorna had trusted him, maybe even liked him. She never questioned paperwork. Everett snatched the document and inspected the seal with a scowl. This gives you no authority to disrupt the burial. Oh, but it does, Dalton replied, pulling on gloves with mock politeness. And I contest this burial site. It's too expensive, inconvenient, unnecessary. I demand the service be halted and the body transferred to cold storage until we decide a better location. Mira's voice cracked. Why? Why do you want to delay her burial? Dalton moved so close she smelled the cologne she bought him last Christmas. Because you're going to sign over something to me, he whispered. Your mother's land in Oak Ridge. You sign the deed today. We continue the burial. You refuse. He gestured toward the coffin. Back to the morgue she goes. It wasn't a threat. It was a hostage negotiation. Everett's eyes flashed. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. Oak Ridge. What lot number? 34, Mira answered. He froze. Then he exhaled a single, cold, humorless laugh. Of course. Mira frowned. What? He held the screen toward her, a map stamped with government markings. The governor approved the interstate expansion yesterday. That road cuts straight through Oak Ridge. Then, pointedly, Lot 34 is in the center of the commercial zone. Mira blinked in confusion. What does that mean? It means, Everett said, locking eyes with Dalton, the state will buy that land for at least $1 million. The crowd gasped. Mira's vision tunneled. All the arguments, the sudden interest in her mother's property, the insistence on handling paperwork, it clicked into place like a cruel puzzle. You knew, she whispered to Dalton. You knew about the buyout. Dalton's mask slipped for a second, revealing a twitch in his cheek. So what if I did? We're married. What's yours is mine. What you're trying to take, she said, voice sharpening, is my mother's legacy. And you'll hand it over, he said, confidence returning, because I'm the one deciding where her body rests. Everett lifted hand. No, you're not. He signaled to 2 men in dark coats near the cars. Hail family security. They stepped forward silently, positioning themselves behind Dalton and his lawyer. This power of attorney is void the moment Mira revokes it in front of witnesses. Mira straightened, heart pounding. I revoke it, she said clearly, right now. The lawyer paled. Dalton staggered backward as the legal ground under him crumbled. The pastor, sensing the shift, quietly stepped aside. Escort them out, Everett instructed. Dalton's composure shattered. You'll regret this, he shouted, as the guards guided him away. You think you've won. This isn't over. His car peeled out of the cemetery, kicking up a spray of wet gravel. Mira stood trembling beside her mother's grave, the moment broken, but at least no longer held hostage. The burial resumed, slow and solemn. When the coffin lowered into the earth, Mira felt something inside her, something fragile, lower with it. After the service, she turned to Everett. We need to go home. I need to clear out Dalton's things, all of it. Together they returned to the apartment. But when Mira pushed the door open, the smell hit her first, the sharp odor of destruction. Her home was unrecognizable. Furniture overturned, drawers dumped out, cabinets ripped from hinges, everything of value gone. On the table, one item remained, a thick folder labeled to my beloved wife, and inside it, Mira discovered the first piece of the darkness Dalton had been hiding from her for years. The folder sat in the center of the ruined table like a poisoned offering. Mira hesitated before opening it, afraid of whatever fresh cruelty Dalton had left behind. Everett hovered nearby, jaw tight with restrained fury. Inside were not love letters, not apologies, just papers, dozens of them. Bank warnings, loan demands, notices from high-interest lenders with predatory names, all in her name. Mira stared, stunned. I didn't borrow anything. I don't have credit cards. I don't even like online banking. Everett snatched one of the pages and scanned it. His face darkened. These were taken out over the last 3 years. Dalton used that power of attorney to access your identity and sign for you. But why? What did he do with the money? The question barely left her lips when her phone buzzed violently. Unknown number. She answered, instantly regretting it. "Ms. Mira Red?" a harsh male voice demanded. "This is a collections division. We've been trying to reach you. Your accounts are in severe delinquency. We know where you work. We know your address. We will recover our funds." Another call came, then another. A barrage. Debt collectors closing in like wolves. Mira hung up, breath shaking. "He didn't just leave me with nothing. He left me owing everything." Everett placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We'll pay off every cent. You are not facing this alone." But Mira shook her head. "No, paying it for me keeps me powerless. I need to know where the money went. I need to understand what he built on my back." Everett studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Then we find the trail." Their lawyer accessed the bank's transaction logs through secure channels. Rows of transfers flashed on the screen. 2,000, 5,000, 8,700, always to the same recipient, Celine Vale. Mira's breath caught. The name. Dalton's assistant. The woman he said was a mousy office help. The lawyer tapped the profile open. Mousy isn't the word I'd use. Celine's social media glowed with images, expensive salons, designer bags, champagne brunches, and one photo caught Mira's eye, a ribbon cutting of a beauty lounge called Celine Luxe Bar, with Celine holding scissors and smiling like a queen. In the background, partially hidden behind a floral arch, stood Dalton, glass of champagne, hand on Celine's back, proud, possessive. The same necklace he once promised Mira for their anniversary sparkled at Celine's throat. Everett exhaled sharply. He used your credit to build a business for his mistress. Mira felt something cold and razor-sharp settle inside her. "I need to see her." Everett's brows lifted. "What do you plan to do?" "Not scream, not fight." She grabbed her coat. "I'm going to conduct an inspection of my investments." Within an hour, Mira, Everett, 2 Hale security officers, and an auditor walked into Celine Luxe Bar. The place gleamed with white marble and gold trim, a palace of vanity built on Mira's suffering. Celine emerged from her office in a silk dress that clung to her body, her belly rounded beneath it. Pregnant, at least 5 months. Her eyes skimmed Mira in her simple coat with open contempt. "Oh, the wife," she smirked. "Did Dalton finally tell you he's done playing charity cases?" "Where is he?" Mira asked, voice steady. "You think I track your husband?" Celine sank onto a velvet sofa. "He ran after making a mess, but don't worry, we'll manage. Our baby and I." "Ours?" Mira repeated, numb. "Your IQ must be remarkably low. Yes, ours. He wanted a family, something you couldn't give him." The words cut, but Mira did not flinch. "This salon was funded with money taken from me. Every illegal transaction is documented." Celine laughed. "Sweetheart, you'll lose in court. We have evidence of your instability." She tossed a folder onto the table. Photos of Mira at her lowest moments, staged by Dalton. A knife in her hand while crying. Sleeping on the floor after sedatives he insisted she take. A setup. A trap. Years in the making. Mira's vision swam, but her voice came out sharp and clear. "I'm not here to fight you, Celine." She turned toward the door. "I'm here to bury the last of my illusions." That night, Mira went to Lorna's old apartment alone. She needed silence. She needed her mother. She needed something. Inside, nothing had changed. The faint scent of lavender lotion lingered. On the sewing mannequin, Mira noticed a seam unraveling, something tucked inside. A diary. Her mother's diary. The final entries were shaky, terrifying. "He came again. Dalton brought me new pills. They made my heart burn. Something is wrong. He watched me, smiling like a wolf." Mira's heart pounded. Her mother hadn't died of illness. She had been poisoned, and the one person who could confirm it had vanished with the evidence.
Mira staggered back from the diary, her pulse roaring in her ears. She could still smell the faint fragrance of her mother lingering in the apartment, lavender lotion mixed with old fabric. But now the place felt different. Every shadow seemed sharper, every silence heavier. Lorna hadn't died. She had been killed, and the pills, the swapped bottle, were the proof. Her breath caught. If she could find it, if she could show an autopsy specialist, she could open a case. She could finally make the truth undeniable. She tore into the bathroom, ripping open the medicine cabinet. Bottles clattered onto the sink, heart pills, ointments, old prescriptions, but the blue bottle described in the diary was missing, just a circle of dust marked where it had once stood. Someone had already been here. "Dalton," she whispered, "or someone he sent." She pressed both hands to her face. The walls felt closer, the ceiling lower. She didn't know if she wanted to scream or collapse. Then she grabbed the diary and rushed out of the apartment. Everett was waiting downstairs, worry etched deep into his features. When she told him what the diary revealed, his expression hardened until his jaw pulsed. "We're going to the police," he said immediately. They drove straight to the precinct. Mira read the last entries to the duty detective, a young man with exhaustion in his eyes and a stack of unsolved cases piled on his desk. He flipped through the diary slowly, then exhaled. "Ma'am, these are just notes, fears, paranoia. Older patients often confuse medications." "She was terrified," Mira argued. "Dalton changed the bottle label." "Do you have it?" the detective asked. "No, it was taken." He leaned back, folding his arms. "The autopsy showed cardiac failure, nothing unusual. We can't open a homicide investigation or exhume a body based on diary entries alone." The room spun. The detective's last sentence felt like a punch straight to her ribs. They walked out of the station with nothing. No case, no validation, no justice. Later that evening, they returned to Everett's home. He poured tea neither of them drank. "We'll try again tomorrow," he said. "We'll find the pharmacist. We'll push harder." Mira nodded, but doubt was creeping in. Dalton was ahead of them. A man like him, devious, desperate, always found new angles. And he did. 2 hours later, Everett turned on the TV. A talk show blared with dramatic music. City Spotlight, the red marriage scandal. Mira's knees nearly gave out. On the screen, Dalton, looking saintly in a black suit, voice tight with grief. "I just want my wife back," he said into the camera. "She's not herself, influenced by money, by manipulation. I wasn't even allowed to mourn my mother-in-law." He dabbed imaginary tears. The audience cooed sympathetically. The host leaned forward. "Is it true she expelled you from your home?" Dalton nodded, anguish painted on like theatrical makeup. "Yes, and her wealthy relative is isolating her. She needs help, not exploitation." Mira's stomach flipped. She felt like she was drowning in lies. But then the host announced, and now a special guest. Ruth, Dalton's mother, shuffled on stage. The same woman who used to criticize Mira's cooking, her clothes, her very existence.
My son, Ruth sobbed theatrically, is a good man. Mira drove her poor mother to the grave with stress. Now she's abandoning her husband, stealing from him, blaming him for everything. Mira felt bile rise. Everett muted the TV. They're constructing a narrative, Mira whispered. They're burying the truth. Then something clicked in Mira's mind, a memory. Ruth had keys. Not just to Mira's apartment, but she'd once borrowed Lorna's keys too. She'd forgotten to return them for a week. A shiver crawled down Mira's spine. Everett, she whispered. Ruth took the bottle. He turned slowly toward her. Are you sure? I'm sure she had access. I'm sure Dalton would make her clean up his mess, and I'm sure she's hiding more than she admits. Mira stood abruptly, grabbing her coat. I need to talk to her. Everett tried to stop her, but Mira shook her head. No more running. If she knows something, we'll get it. An hour later, Mira stood in front of Ruth's door. When it opened, the older woman wasn't smirking. She was terrified. Mira, she rasped, voice trembling, I was expecting you. But what Ruth confessed next shattered every remaining illusion Mira had about how deep Dalton's family was in this and just how far they'd already gone.
Ruth's hands shook as she pulled Mira inside, glancing nervously down the hallway as though someone might be watching. The moment the door shut, her facade cracked. She looked smaller, older, frightened in a way Mira had never seen. I knew you'd come, Ruth whispered. Eventually. Mira crossed her arms tightly. Where is the bottle? Ruth sank into her sofa, eyes wet. I destroyed it. The room fell silent. Mira's heartbeat thundered painfully in her ears. You destroyed evidence of my mother's murder? Ruth flinched. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Dalton said it would calm her, help her sleep. He said the doctor approved. Her voice broke. I didn't know he switched the pills. I didn't know they'd kill her? Mira finished, her voice cutting like glass. Ruth burst into tears. If I had known, I would never have. I only took the bottle to protect him once I realized. Protect him? Mira's voice rose. He killed my mother. He stole from me. He staged photos to make me look unstable. And he's not done. He's going to ruin me publicly. Ruth's tears dried instantly. Something steely appeared in her expression. You don't understand my son. Her voice lowered. Dalton was always determined. Even as a boy, if he wanted something, he got it. He'd lie, charm, manipulate, anything. But now, she clasped her trembling hands, he's desperate. Desperate people burn everything around them. Mira stepped back. Where is he now? I don't know, Ruth swallowed. He won't answer my calls, but he left a message. Ruth reached into a drawer and pulled out a single sheet of paper. A note written in Dalton's sharp handwriting. If everything falls apart, I'll take her legacy with me. Mira's blood chilled. He's going after the land. No, Ruth closed her eyes. He's going after everything connected to it. Everett, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. He's planning something bigger than we thought. Ruth nodded weakly. Yes, he said if he couldn't have the land legally, he would make sure no one, especially Mira, benefited from it. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. Mira whispered, he's going to destroy Oak Ridge. But how? Everett exchanged a grim look with her. Development sites, survey markers, construction offices, even the county registrar. If Dalton vandalizes or burns anything, he could sabotage the land's value or ownership records. A sudden crash from outside made all three jump. Tires screeched, then silence. Everett rushed to the window. He was here. Mira's chest tightened. He saw me come. Ruth gripped Mira's hands with bony fingers. Please, he's not the boy I raised. He's something darker now. You need to leave before he circles back. But Mira shook her head. I'm not running anymore. Everett nodded.
Then we move fast. We go to Oak Ridge tonight before Delton does." They left Ruth trembling in her doorway and drove toward the land, wide fields stretching beneath a moonlit sky. From a distance, Oak Ridge looked peaceful. Too peaceful. As they approached, Mira noticed a glow beyond the tree line, a faint flickering orange. Her breath hitched. "Everett, that's fire." He accelerated. When they rounded the bend, the full horror came into view. Flames devoured the old Caris farmhouse, Lorna's childhood home, the place Mira and her mother once dreamed of restoring. Orange sparks blew into the sky like fireflies, and the air smelled of smoke and gasoline. Mira screamed, trying to run toward the house, but Everett grabbed her. "No, it'll explode." And then it did. A violent boom tore through the land. Wood splintered, windows burst, embers scattered like angry stars. Mira fell to her knees, sobbing. On the gravel near the gate lay a single object, left deliberately. A wedding ring. Dalton's ring. Everett picked it up, jaw clenching. "He's warning us." Mira wiped her tears, her face hardening into something resolute. "No, he's declaring war." A police siren wailed in the distance. Everett whispered, "Mira, this fire was meant to erase something." Mira nodded, voice trembling but fierce. "The question is, what?" And as investigators sifted through the ashes, what they uncovered would shift the entire battle in a direction Mira never expected.
The fire raged until dawn, leaving nothing but charred beams and blackened earth. Police cars, fire trucks, and investigators swarmed the scene. Yellow tape fluttered in the cold wind as if waving goodbye to everything that once existed here. Mira stood wrapped in Everett's coat, staring at the ruins of her mother's childhood home, the place her ancestors built, the place her mother wanted to return to someday. Now it was only ashes. A firefighter approached them, helmet tucked under his arm. "We found accelerant patterns," he said grimly. "This wasn't an accident. Someone used gasoline, a lot of it." Everett nodded tightly. "We already know who." But the firefighter shook his head. "Maybe you think you know, but here's the thing. There's 2 sets of footprints, one matching a heavy work boot, the other a lighter shoe, woman's size." Mira's stomach dropped. "Celine," Everett frowned. "Or someone Dalton paid. He wouldn't get his own mistress involved in arson." But Mira wasn't so sure. Desperate men drag everyone around them into the fire. Another officer approached, holding a sealed evidence bag. Inside it was a twisted, half-melted silver item, a locket identical to Mira's, same crest, same lineage symbol. Mira's pulse quickened. "Does that mean—" The officer cut in. There was something else. He led them to the edge of the debris. A metal lockbox had survived, partially shielded by concrete. The firefighters pried it open, revealing brittle documents, half-burned but readable. Property surveys, deeds, old letters, and at the bottom, a sealed envelope with Lorna's handwriting. Mira's breath caught. She opened it with trembling fingers. "My Mira, if you are reading this, something has gone wrong. I have felt eyes on me for months. Your husband is not safe, not for you and not for this land. I fear he knows what our family buried here long ago, a secret we were meant to guard, not use." The next lines were burned away, leaving only darkness and jagged edges. Mira looked up. She knew Dalton was after the land before I did. Everett rubbed the bridge of his nose. But what secret? An investigator called over. "Ma'am, there's something else." They moved toward the back of the ruins, where a patch of earth had been dug up, not by firefighters, but earlier. Fresh shovel marks. Someone had been searching here. A deputy lifted a small evidence bag. Inside was a broken glass vial. "Poison," he said. The lab will confirm it, but it resembles digitalis derivative, strong enough to stop a heart. Mira's own heart began to race. That's what killed my mother. That's what she wrote about. And Dalton came back to destroy the evidence, Everett added. The deputy continued. We also found tire tracks leading to the woods. Whoever did this ran before the fire spread. Mira scanned the tree line. He's close. I can feel him. As daylight crept over the land, Mira's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it, dread tightening her throat. Everett touched her arm. You don't have to answer. But she did. She pressed the phone to her ear. Mira, Dalton's voice crooned, smooth as oil, you're making this harder than it has to be. Every muscle in her body tensed. You burned my mother's home. No, he said, lightly. I burned the past. I burned the lies your family hid here. You don't understand the value of what's in that soil, but I do. Her breath hitched. You murdered my mother, and you think you'll get away with everything? Dalton chuckled, cold, hollow. Get away? No, sweetheart. I'm just getting started. Mira steadied her voice. You're going to prison. We'll see, he murmured. But before that, I need to see you. Alone. Tonight. No, Mira hissed. He sighed theatrically. Mira, you're not listening. If you don't come, someone else will pay the price. Her blood froze. Who? She demanded. Dalton gave a slow, dreadful laugh. Your uncle, perhaps? Or that friend you keep visiting in the hospital? A pause. Or maybe the person reading the diary you think I don't know about. Mira gasped. You stay away from them. Oh, Mira, he whispered, that depends entirely on you. Meet me tonight, midnight, Oak Ridge Road. Come alone. The line went dead. Everett grabbed her shoulders. What did he say? Mira swallowed hard, eyes wide with horror. He's going to hurt someone if I don't go. Everett's voice dropped. Mira, it could be a trap. And Mira already knew. It was. But she also knew something else. Tonight, for the first time, she wasn't walking into Dalton's trap unprepared. Midnight draped Oak Ridge Road in a cold, moonlit stillness. The wreckage of the burned farmhouse still smoldered faintly in the distance, the faint glow like dying embers of a war Mira never asked for. She stood at the meeting point Dalton had chosen, alone, just as he demanded. But this time, she didn't come unprepared. A tiny signal device rested in her coat pocket, silently transmitting her location. Everett's security team waited far beyond the bend, out of sight but within range. Mira wasn't here to surrender. She was here to finish this. A set of headlights cut through the darkness. Dalton's car rolled to a stop. He stepped out wearing a smug smile, the moon highlighting the gauntness in his face. Desperation had carved new lines into him. His once perfect hair was disheveled, and his clothes smelled faintly of smoke. Mira, he greeted softly, as though she were an old lover instead of the woman he tried to destroy. Always so obedient when it matters. Mira didn't move. Where is the person you threatened? Everett? The investigator? Who? Dalton grinned. Relax. Everyone is alive. For now. Their safety depends on what you give me. What do you want? Everything. He stepped closer. The land, the deeds, the inheritance. All of it signed over to me. You'll tell Everett you were mistaken. You'll walk away quietly, and in return, I let everyone around you continue breathing. Mira stared at him, her fear slowly crystallizing into something sharper. You burned the house. You destroyed my mother's things. You poisoned her. Dalton's expression shifted, annoyed, not guilty. Oh, please. She was old and sick. I simply helped nature along. And as for the fire,
Well, some structures deserve to burn. You admit it? Mira asked. Dalton smirked. There's no one here to hear me. Mira's fingers brushed the tiny device in her pocket. Oh, there is, she whispered. Dalton blinked. What? Mira nodded slightly toward the tree line. You're not the only one who learned how to set a trap. Before Dalton could react, floodlights snapped on across the road. Everett's security emerged from the darkness, forming a wall behind Mira. Police vehicles rolled in from both sides, red and blue lights washing across the road like a tide of justice. Dalton stiffened. No, 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 you came alone. You did, but I didn't come unprotected. Dalton stepped back, panic blooming across his features. He reached for something in his coat, but an officer shouted, "Hands up, now!" Dalton froze, sweat beading at his temples. His voice cracked. Mira, you don't understand. There are things in that land that... It doesn't matter. Not anymore. No! Dalton roared. You think this is over? The land, your mother, your family hid something valuable under those fields. Secrets, wealth. I just needed time to find it. Mira's chest tightened. She remembered the burned letter, the half-missing lines. Whatever was buried there, my family didn't want weaponized by someone like you. Dalton lunged, not towards her, but toward the woods, trying to flee. Officers tackled him, forcing him onto the cold gravel. He thrashed like a man drowning in his own unraveling. You think you've won? He screamed as they cuffed him. You haven't won anything. Mira stepped forward slowly, her voice steady. I didn't win. You lost because you never knew how to value anything except control. Dalton was dragged to his feet, still shouting curses into the night. The echoes faded as the police car swallowed him and carried him away. The silence afterwards felt enormous, heavy but freeing. Mira exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. Everett approached her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. It's over. Mira looked toward the blackened ruins of the farmhouse. Not over, but it's the beginning of something new. A fresh dawn crept over Oak Ridge, painting the sky gold. And in that moment, Mira realized she wasn't standing in the ashes of her past anymore. She was standing at the entrance of her future. But Oak Ridge still held its secret, half burned, half hidden, and uncovering what her mother tried to protect would become the next chapter of Mira's fight. If today's story touched your heart or kept you hooked, you can show your love by sending a super thanks. Your support helps me continue creating more powerful life stories for you. Thank you truly for always being so kind and supportive. I can't wait to read your thoughts about this story. On your screen right now, you'll find 2 new stories that I highly recommend, filled with emotions, twists, and lessons. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for many more inspiring life stories. Until the next one, sending you love, respect, and gratitude. See you in the next story.